Yo guys, it is Old Man G here, back again with another live show. Another late show. And we're here to talk about the latest news regarding Manchester United transfer news, specifically regarding the news that was broken later today regarding Benjamin Šeško. Obviously, let's talk about a new goalkeeper in Lammenss from Royal Antwerp. I didn't go live yesterday or post a video about Rashford, but obviously it's been confirmed that Marcus Rashford is going to Barcelona. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But anyway, guys, remember if you are new to the channel to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio False on Twitter, Red Devil Studio X, and smash the notification button, etc., etc. It sort of goes a long way. Big up everyone who's watching the chat and also people watching previously. So it is a late Sunday, at least in the UK anyway. But yeah, let's quickly sort of get into it and then let me know your thoughts in the comments. I think I've got a poll on in the chat. And yeah, the question is basically, what is more of a priority, striker, goalkeeper, or midfielder? We'll talk a little bit about that as well, because someone who briefly watched the highlights of the game against Leeds, and also just what happened last season, etc. I think it's absolutely criminal that there's even debate about the fact that we need a goalkeeper over we need a midfielder over a goalkeeper. To be honest, Onana wasn't playing against Leeds, and he wasn't playing against some other games, and it didn't necessarily mean that we were better. You're still playing boring football, still not creating enough chances. The manager himself said it's like we don't have the dynamism in the midfield. I think if I'll be honest before I get into this news, if United honestly think that they're going to be going into next season with a midfield of Bruno and Casemiro, because Amorim thinks they speak Portuguese, so it's fine, and that's going to be our pivot to be able to get games, we are going to lose a lot of games. I'll just keep it a stat. We're going to lose a lot of games. They don't have the legs, the mobility to be able to run Manchester United's midfield. Midfield has been an issue for Manchester United for as long as I can remember. And unfortunately, and here's where my ranting goes, because of social media, because of fan channels, because of a lot of things, that the talk has been on Evers that needs to be improved. Like I said, striker for me is a must. Goalkeeper is definitely sort of there. But the reality is that United's I can't remember the last time United had a functioning midfield. Like, we've had good attackers. We had Ronaldo. We had we had Martial, Green, Rashford. We've had functioning attackers at the club. We've had functioning defenders at the club. We've had a goalkeeper with De Gea and his efforts. But the midfield has never really been like. It is rare for me to say that the midfield has been the bright spark for Manchester United going forward. So we'll talk about that a bit later. But anyway, so let's get into the news. So let's get first into the Sesko news. So Ben Jacobs, who I'm assuming I'm putting him at sort of third tier regarding where we are journalism wise. Ben Jacobs basically saying Benjamin Šeško is back on Manchester United's radar as number 9 option, as revealed last week. This was today, by the way. Approach made 12 months ago before Sesko decided to stay at Leipzig. Nicholas Jackson and Ollie Watkins, 2 other names discussed. Man Utd is still shortlisting several targets. Find new striker, the next priority. So there's a lot to unpack in this tweet. Obviously, I think one of the key things that Sesko is not the only target that Manchester United is looking for when it comes to striker options. There are other targets as well. The Nico Jackson thing seems to be getting momentum. Obviously, Nico Jackson is a player that I think with the lap coming in and João Pedro coming in, it seems that he might be itching for a move away. And obviously, Ollie Watkins from Villa. Those are 2 names that come. Because obviously the reality is Gyökeres, as someone who said on the channel multiple times that I knew that Gyökeres was not coming to Manchester United despite the reports. It is definitely it definitely makes sense that United would have a list of strikers. Now I'm curious to see what the others are. I suspect Mateta is possibly on there as well. Maybe Vlahovic as well is on there. But as far as the poll's concerned, in fact, let me change. Okay, so I think I'm gonna just quickly put the what is more of a priority thing on hold, and what I'll do, I'll just end that poll quickly. Sorry, and just put which striker do you think Manchester United should get? And I suspect striker should United get. Now I suspect most people will say Sesko, as opposed to Jackson or Watkins. I'll be honest, I would go with Watkins. My only issue with Watkins is possibly his injury record. Obviously, you've got Nico Jackson, who, I mean, at the end of the day, most of these options, if we're going to keep a stack, are better than Højlund at this moment in time. I think Højlund still has potential. I think he can still improve. But for me, he can't be the person to lead. Højlund for me is a player who needs to come off the bench type of thing. That for me is what Højlund should do. Højlund for me is that type of player personally. I just think that if you're United, you're thinking, right, okay, do we really, really have a lot of options here? Do we really have a lot of options here? I don't know. What are the options that Manchester United have? I don't know, guys. My personal preference on Sesko coming to Manchester United, I'll be honest, guys, it gives me Timo Werner vibes. It gives me Timo Werner vibes. It gives me Timo Werner vibes with Sesko. I'm very reluctant to, I guess maybe my mindset right now at this point is actually Premier League proven. Manchester United are not going to play European football next season. It's just going to be Premier League, FA Cup, etc. One game a season, that's it. I personally believe we need players that can hit the ground running. And Mbeumo and Kune, I know, are going to be players that are going to be able to hit the ground running. There's no doubt about that. Boom, they're going to go. They're going to go and do things, and they'll start. Will Sesko be enough to be able to lead the line for Manchester United? I just don't know. I really don't know. He could, Oh, Samson says, big up, Samson, playing in the chat. Why didn't they hijack the Osterman deal? Because because to be honest, we already discussed with Osterman, and I just think that we don't. I don't think that we think that it's too expensive. It's too expensive. It's too expensive. That's what I just think. His wages are too expensive. I just think it's just too expensive. And he seems to like Galatasaray. I mean, the reality is that, like, whatever people say, United are not in this sort of situation about, like, when we don't have a lot to bargain with. We're not in the Premier League where, I mean, Punishing Soul says, and Mbeumo confirmed number 9. Is he going to be the number 9 though? Is he going to be number 9? I mean, I do think that because he what would have been nice. What would have been nice would have been if we actually got if we got Ivan Toney back. Hear me out here. Imagine if we actually went to Saudi League, got Ivan Toney, who already play, who we still think is a pretty good player, even though he's playing Saudi League, and we got him, to play alongside Mbeumo. So you have Toney and Mbeumo and Kune. That is already, in my opinion, better than what Manchester United have currently. So should have had a punt on Simon from Porto. That's true. Oh, 19 jersey. Yeah, I suspect. I agree with you there. But yeah, in answer to the Christian question, I don't think that we were as much as, especially being a Nigerian, I'd have liked Oshman to come to Manchester United. The reality is that his wages were too high, and Galatasaray playing the Champions League. I think unfortunately, as United fans, we kind of overestimated this United poor factor. The reality is that most most players now, it's not about the name, it's about playing CL football, brand deals, things, etc. like that. And obviously where you are. You know, the English press, moving to England to play for United team that's in chaos doesn't seem to be quite lucrative for many people. That's just how it is right now. Samson says Tony is, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think for me, Tony would be, Ivan Tony would actually be quite a good shout. You bring him in, he's played him before. My thing with Sesko for me is I looked at his stats, like they're okay. They're not that great. You know, I think 16 goals, 19 goals in all the competitions. You know, it's okay. I wouldn't say it's great. And you know, given where he plays for Leipzig, I'm not an ex. I'm not saying I watched the guy, but I would say that I just get these Werner vibes. You know, he came to Chelsea, and I don't think he was bad at Chelsea, but will he be better? I don't know. For me, we need a striker who I want a striker who can hold up the ball. The amount of times I was frustrated with Højlund when he couldn't hold up the ball, run in behind, and good in the air. And then, you know, added bonus, you know, so he's got a good touch. For me, those are the four talents of a striker that is needed at Manchester United in an ideal world. I'm not saying every striker has that, but that's what we need. I think Lemon would be a major coup. Yes. We'll talk about the next. So that's going to be the next talk that Fabrizio posted. Now, obviously, and I'll put this on the poll. What is the preference? Because while I've always said I don't mind us getting a new goalkeeper, but my personal opinion, and I'll talk about this in a bit later, is that I think that the midfield is a priority. I briefly watched highlights of that game against Leeds, and reflecting back, we cannot go into next season with Bruno and Casemiro as the midfield pivot. We cannot. If there's one area of the field that has always, we've had, you know, decent goalkeepers, we've had decent defenders, we've had decent attacks at times. The one thing that has not been fixed since Sir Alex Ferguson left the club is the midfield. I cannot remember a time when I could safely say United have a functional midfield. You know, the only time I remember it being functional, being good, the best performance I've seen Manchester United play was when we played, it was under Ollie, and we played Everton in, I think it was an FA Cup or Carabao Cup quarters. And I was just watching the football going like, wow. It was like pass and move, possession. Everyone's on the same wavelength. You know, scoring goals, like it's just that we didn't finish. We won with the goals at the end, but we didn't score loads. But that was the only time I was like, wow, this looks like a team that is really sure of himself and in control. But aside from that, no other time aside from that. There's literally been no other time aside from that I've seen. So yeah, goalkeeper would be good. I think it's a good, but if I'm honest, my preference is striker, midfield, and then goalkeeper. And a lot of that would depend on obviously outs. Now, obviously, Rashford is gone. We'll talk about that as well. That helps a lot. Big up, Rob. Hope you're doing well. Thanks, guys, in the chat. Bring Lammenss in contest with Onana. Kind of like to hear Henderson in like 2020 situation. Okay. Let's see. Then Layman gets number and Onana goes in an ideal world. To be honest, like I said, I think that, you know, a lot of people think I'm defending Onana, and I do, because and the reason why I do it is because fundamentally I think that United's problems are more than just Onana. I don't think we lost that final because of Onana. I don't think we were in the 15th because of Onana. I think we were there because we couldn't score goals and we couldn't hold on to games. So when we played against bottom teams, we couldn't finish. And when we played against top teams or slightly difficult teams, we couldn't really hold on to the ball. You know, we against Spurs, against them, where people just bypass our midfield without. It's been happening time and time again. You know, I think a goalkeeper needs to come in, and almost like 17. Yeah, that's fair. If we can play Sancho at Sarda, why not pay Oshman? Because I rate him. Yeah, no, I agree. You know, but this is the thing. The answer to your question, Samson, is simple. Ineos. You know, the reality under Ineos is that we don't want to be a club anymore that pays ridiculous salaries. What Ineos want inevitably at the end of the day is that they want to say, right, okay, We're letting go. That's why Rashford, Anthony, a lot of these big guns, we're letting them go. We're trying to get them to the wage rate because we don't have to pay large wages anymore. I think the era of us paying 300, 350k plus wages a week anymore is over. We just don't have that money, and we don't have that pull anymore. Potentially, if United win the Champions League, we might have been able to do something. Definitely. Maybe that might have tempted Osimhen, though he seemed to like Galatasaray, so it is what it is. But it's a possibility that it could have tempted him. But I just think that I just think that we this pull just not there, unfortunately. So I guess the only thing to comment from others from this story, and make sure you like the video, guys, like the video and subscribe to it. We're on the road to 5k subscribers, guys. So that is the plan. I say that's the idea, the goals. So if you could help us with that, that would be great. Thank you very much. The only things that obviously just going back to the striker situation is again with Sesko. It's obviously clear, as you can see, that he's not the only option. He is a option, not the only option. And the fact that we've got these names on this list, and in fact, let's quickly go to that poll. Let's have a look at that poll right now. Yeah, 85% of you say Sesko, 0 Jackins, 15% Watkins. And I'll be honest, guys, I think Watkins is better. I mean, maybe let me know your opinions in the chat, guys. I think Sesko is overrated. I think this is another one of those things where it's like we're getting a player from another league. I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I'm not saying I wouldn't support him if he comes. But even Duran at Villa, Watkins has played in the Premier League. He's performed in the Premier League. I think he's given. I actually think if he's given consistent starts in the Premier League, he'll be fine. I think that into that that interaction between him and Buemo and Kuna could be really useful. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I don't know. I just think that that. Is it that Sesko is it that Sesko is actually good, or is it that we're like okay, it's like almost like a new car, let's see how it goes? Because one thing that I would agree with Ineos about is that we need to kind of stop spending and obviously the amount that Sesko would cost would be quite a lot. One of the things that I think that we need to be careful of is that we need to be careful of this. Oh, this player looks good, skill comp. Let's, spend a ridiculous amount of money to try and get this guy. Anthony being a flop, et al. Although he's had a good bet. Is he going to be good enough for Manchester United? I don't know. I certainly wouldn't be wanting to spend 60, 70, 80 million pounds on players from the Bundesliga if they end up flopping. That we can't do. We can't do that. But let's see what happens. Jackson, the reality for me is that it's just that when it comes to striker situation, is that we just cannot have Højlund cannot be the leading line for Manchester United next season. That's basically it. I'm not saying we should sell Højlund, by the way. I still think he's quite young. I still think he can improve, but him leading the line for Manchester United just was not was just not good. Was not good. Oh, interesting news. Federico Chiesa left that Liverpool pre-season squad. Yeah, because the guy is injured, and Luis Diaz not part of this. Oh, he was the pre-season tour. That's interesting. Frederick Chiesa. We're talking about midfielders. Because I actually wouldn't mind Chiesa. The issue is with Chiesa is just the issue with Chiesa is just that he's just injury prone, which is actually such a shame actually, because he's actually not a bad player. But yeah, the dude's injury prone, unfortunately. Let me quickly get right. Okay, so let us put the let us park the Sesko this discussion to one side, and let us just talk just briefly about Let's have a look here. 1 second, guys. One second, guys. Just share that. Okay, so moving on, guys. So Fabrizio obviously just posted this reason. So this isn't more about the goalkeeper situation. So we're gonna obviously park the just quickly park the Sesko and striker discussion to one side. And what I will do is I will just change the poll. Make sure you, 12 people, make sure you like it. Let's get to at least 12, 15 likes. Come on. Obviously, people wanted Sesko as opposed to Watkins. Now, here's going to be an interesting poll. Which is what should be the preference? What should be the preference? Should be the preference a midfielder or a goalkeeper? Okay, and I want you guys to let me know. Is a midfielder or a goalkeeper a preference? So marinate that in the chat. Fabrizio obviously earlier today talked about Manchester United making initial contacts to be informed on deal options for 23-year-old goalkeeper Senne Lammens, Royal Antwerp goalkeeper among main names on the list. They decide to go for a new goalkeeper this summer. Debunking Martinez also an option, but more expensive. So this is interesting. Obviously, United seem to have a list of goalkeepers they want. But what I just find interesting is just saying that it says if they decide to go for a new goalkeeper this summer. Are we going to decide? Are we going for a new goalkeeper or not? Is it a thing? So it sounds to me like it's one of those things that's contingent. Because there's no real mention. I think there's a couple of things. I think the first thing is presumably goalkeeper is not a priority. Okay, in that I mean that we know from Fabrizio, Ben Jacobs, getting another striker is a priority. Okay, so we also know that we're still looking on outgoings. Rashford is gone. We're still working on Sancho, Anthony. Well, those are the two, isn't it? So I guess, or my understanding would be that if we can't offload Sancho and Anthony, are the only funds available for a striker? Is that kind of where we're at? How much is the striker going to be, etc. So it sounds to me like a lot of whether we're going to get a new goalkeeper or not is going to be based on how much we're going to pay for striker and also outgoings. Garnacho, sorry, I should say, should be in that as well. So it is an interesting one. Do I think that? And again, like I said, what's putting this in the chat? It's interesting that we're not being linked with a midfielder. Ruben Amorim said in the comments of the game that they're lacking the energy in the midfield. Unless the thought process that Mainu and Collier and Soko and some of these other youth are going to step into the midfield, which I think is incredible. That once again, Manchester United are going to be relying on youth to help them reverse the 15th decision. I don't know. Amorim says that he needs Bruno, the leadership, etc. So unless he's going to put Bruno behind as one of number 10s, with Cunha, I don't know, and Bremer, I don't know. I can only assume that he might decide to play Mbeumo as a 9 and play Cunha and Bruno behind and then midfield. That potentially could work if we don't get a striker, but we seem to want to get a striker. You know, you've got Mount, you've got these players. We've got how many number 10s that are there competing, but the midfield is an issue in my opinion. Should we go for a goalkeeper? Yes, but that for me, in my opinion, is secondary to a striker. I know I keep on going on about this, but I just think it's just the midfield is the engine, is the dynamism. It's how you progress the ball from defense to attack. It is a very, very important part of the park. And for too long, Manchester United have neglected it. That game against Spurs and other games, you can easily see that. You can easily see a Manchester United midfield that just doesn't work. And if we're going to, because it also comes back to what is people's goals for Manchester United this season? What are our goals? What are our goals? If our goal is to get back into Europe, we need to fix the midfield. If the goal is to finish in the top 10, then okay, you could probably do with just an attacker and maybe a goalkeeper. But if our goal is to finish back in Europe again, we need to get a midfielder. We need to sign more. You know, it has to be that. It has to be that. We really need the player who can bring us back to track. But if we want Sesko, we have to also buy Watkins. I mean, I don't know if you can buy. You don't necessarily need to buy both of them, but I mean, I guess there is an argument for both. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, bottom right hand corner. By the way, please, as we're only 25, I think, subscribers away from 4.5 subscribers. So please, if you're new, get involved. It makes a big difference, guys. So yeah, I if I'm honest, I don't really know that much about Senne Lammens. I said I don't really watch Royal Antwerp. So if you do know about them, let me know in the chat. Let's go as we're looking. Let's go back to the poll and seeing what people said. Yeah, I think. For people who voted, a lot of people agreeing with me that the midfielder 62%, 38%. Rob, saying we definitely lacking energy in midfield. I know we both agree on bringing Fred. Well, yeah, exactly. I'd love Fred to be the key thing is, Rob, is what I'm saying is that it's all well and good we blaming a striker and a goalkeeper, and I think both were crucial. But for me, the midfield is the most important part of a team. The reason why City, the reason why PSG, the reason why Liverpool, the reason why so many teams are where they are, even Chelsea, Chelsea, a lot of people don't seem to understand the reason why Chelsea, because they're like, oh, they spend all this money on kids and these players weren't that sort of great. But where did Chelsea spend most of the money? They spent 100 million plus on Caicedo, 100 million plus on Enzo, and I bet, what was it, 60 million, 65 million plus on Lavia. So they realize, hey, if we want, and Lavia, Caicedo, and Enzo is Chelsea's strongest midfield, and it's one reason why they're doing so well. How can Chelsea do that? Chelsea do that because they spent their money on the midfield. That's what they did. They spent the money on midfield. They spent the money on getting a balanced midfield. United, even though we bought midfield players, it's not functional. We bought Agate for someone. We bought this player for someone. We did this, that. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what in this system? What are we trying to do here? If you're gonna play a 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1, the two. So you're not really playing. I don't know. Are you really playing with DM? You want to hold, and you're going to use wing backs to push up. Then you need really dynamic midfielders. You need really, really dynamic midfielders because there's no point in Ahmad and Dorgu pushing up, bombing up. As soon as we lose the ball, they come and they come try and track back, and our midfielders aren't anywhere to be seen. Or if Bruno's going elsewhere, it just doesn't work, guys. It just doesn't work. We need to change that. So for me, after you get a striker, and again, it also comes to what are we doing with likes of Mainey? What are we doing with Agate? What are we doing with Collier? The midfielders are going to be Bruno right now are Bruno, Casemiro, Mainu, Collier, and Ugarte. Ugarte is a DM. You could obviously play with Ugarte, but then you need someone who can carry the ball more dynamic. I honestly don't know where Ugarte fits anymore. If I'm honest, in Amorim's system, I don't know where Ugarte fits. You could play Ugarte but then you have one holding and then one player that just sort of bombs up, and no one's really actually, no one's really actually holding the ball in midfield. I don't know. So we'll see about this. Yes, United. I like Sesko, Innocent, M. Martinez, Ndika, Ndidi, Tuna. Ndidi? Is Ndidi still? Are we still singing Ndidi in at this point? I don't know. Are we really still talking about Ndidi now? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's coming closer. It's coming closer. 56%. Midfielder 44. But I mean, just hear my case is what I'm saying. Hear my case out, guys. Like I said, I just think that we'll obviously monitor these events and see what happens. But at the end of the day, the midfield positions are going to be, it can be interesting. So that's my 2 cents. Right. Okay. I'm going to pause up one and just quickly take a quick detour, because I also think that this story is good to just sort of say, and also one of the reasons why I didn't react to it. A lot of people did, but there's a lot of fake news out there for obvious reasons. So hopefully everyone can see that. Yeah. So there was this story about Victor Gyökeres and Manchester United hijacking. I called BS before anyway. It was nonsense, and to be honest, I just thought it was a way for Gyökeres' agent or their camp to basically pressure Arsenal to come to terms. United aren't in for Gyökeres. Fabrizio obviously came in and said he maintains his clear position despite links to Manchester and more clubs. He wants Arsenal. Total priority to FC Post in June and no change of plans with Adrian Hassan on the same page with Gyökeres. Exactly. Since June. Exactly. The reality is this: United would have got Gyökeres if they won the Champions League, but they didn't. Simple as that. We were never going to get Gyökeres result. That's always my thing. So any talk about United Gyökeres, just ignore it. It's nonsense. Lee K says both 3 positions are equally important. None is above the other. I would say striker is definitely striker is above the others, just based on stats from last season. When it comes to how many goals we conceded, we didn't concede that much more than Villa, Chelsea, and Newcastle. Maybe about 5, 6 to 8 or something like that more compared to those clubs. Those clubs finished in top 5 or 6. So as bad as Nana was, we still didn't concede that many more goals compared to them. Those teams that qualified. But when you look at the goals scored last season, we were basically 15th, 16th. So our position in the league actually corresponds to the amount of goals that we scored. We were, I think, 15th/16th, I think, worst when it came to goals scored. We were basically like relegation quality with goals. And when it comes to battling relegation, like when I look at teams, that are battling relegation, the issue is these days actually not conceding tons of goals. The issue is unable to score goals. Because you get, the amount of relegation teams, or maybe they lose a 1-0 or 2-0 here, or whatever it is, these bitty sort of results, but they can't score. That's the difference. Southampton couldn't score. Leicester, I mean, they had Vardy and they tried, but he's old. The common denominator a lot of teams is that it's just not being able to score goals. Spurs were a bit of an anomaly because they had tons of injuries and stuff. So for me, out of the 3, I think striker is definitely more of a priority than the other 2. Midfielder and goalkeeper is where you can have a debate. I wouldn't mind either or, but I lean more towards a midfielder because, quite frankly, when you look at teams look at the teams right now that are doing well in Europe and in the league, it's teams that have functional midfields. Chelsea, Manchester, Arsenal, Liverpool, all these teams that have essentially fixed top four. PSG, Barca, or certainly PSG anyway, their midfields are functional, and they spend a lot of money on midfield players. We spend so much money, and I don't really know what it shows, especially in Amorim's system. In Amorim's system, when you've got two fullbacks bombing up, the two in the middle of the park have to have a lot of legs and have got a lot to do. And Casemiro and Bruno can't do that. So unless you're going to rely on Mainu, Collier, and maybe Nagate, who knows? Maybe you try Mainu, but then you got to drop Bruno, or you push Bruno up into number 10 positions, and then where Cunha and Mbeumo are going to play. So who knows? I totally agree with you, G, and why we have not addressed the midfield area. I don't know. I really, really, really don't know why we haven't addressed midfield. It beggars belief to me that we still do not address midfield. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Casemiro out, Ederson in, Lindelof, Evans out. Well, I mean, Lindelof and Evans have gone, so we can't really use them. They've definitely gone. But who knows where who knows who's going to go? I mean, we've got I don't think we need to get any more defenders. You've got Martinez coming back. You've got, I think defense-wise, I think we're good. You've got Martinez coming back. Yoro is good. Ed and Heaven, I think, is pretty good as well. Maguire's can be decent and give us a shift. De Ligt's there, I think. So I think defense-wise, I think we're good. I don't think we need to sort out the defense. I don't know why Luke Shaw is even involved. I really don't want to see Luke. I definitely, if we're going to be in a situation where I'm now going to start to see Luke Shaw as part of a back three, then I don't know. I think Amorim probably will be going along the same line that so many United managers have gone, where they seem to, there's maybe a leadership group and they seem to just defer to the leadership group to get them out of games, and they don't. So we'll see. Big up SMB, big up. But yeah, I just want to address this whole thing of this whole bogus thing with Gyökeres. We're not getting Gyökeres. It would be interesting if Sesko's a better season than Gyökeres if we get Sesko, but yeah. I mean, you look at even Evan Ferguson. I remember one time when we were linked, and Brighton wanted 100 million for Evan Ferguson. And now he's going on loan to freaking Roma. So there you go. Let's see. Was there anything else to cover? Yeah, I mean, so that's the goalkeeper situation as Gyökeres. So I think, before we want to round up, I think I would want to address something that I should have addressed yesterday, because I don't think there's anything as other specific news. So, which is this. And let me know what you think in the chat as well. And this is obviously Barcelona, Marcus Rashford. Man United need to let Man Utd. We do need to let Man Utd develop. We do. But will Amorim? I don't know. I like the Mbeumo signing early. I hope so. But he doesn't play. The only thing I would say, I guess, is that if what's his name gets, I don't know many managers that play 3-4-3 anymore. But if we do get a new manager after Amorim, he'll have at least a few decent wingers left. Because I'm still not convinced about this 3-4-3 system. It work in the Premier League, and Amorim doesn't want to adapt. So let's see. For me, the best managers are the ones that adapt. I guess Ten Hag. People say Ten Hag had to adapt, but it didn't work for him in the end. But he still won 2 trophies. Let's see what happens. I don't know. Because Ruben has now got the whole point of this preseason is for the players to basically respond to Amorim's formation and system. And so far, based on one game, it's not looking good. It's looking boring and not good. So let's see. Right. Okay. Lastly, Rashford. So as everyone kind of reacted to yesterday, Marcus Rashford to Barcelona was obviously confirmed. Obviously big move for him. He obviously wants to qualify for, or wants to be in contention for, the England squad. I think this is, you got to remember, guys, this is obviously a World Cup year, and there are a lot of players that really want to make an impression. I think this was the only way that Rashford thought he could potentially fit himself into the England squad, and by doing so, he's got his move. Fabrizio says Barca have sealed all documents of Rashford deal set to land in Spain. Understand Barca pay 40 million gross as salary coverage plus bonuses linked to appearances. Marcus takes the same pay cut, and Man Utd will not cover his salary. 30 million buy option for June. I mean, the thing is, a lot of people say, but if you're Barca, 30 million for Marcus Rashford, man, just shows, you just look at just how many players that are leaving Manchester United for. This guy had a phenomenal season. To the first season under Ten Hag, I think Ten Hag's first season and Ollie's second season were phenomenal seasons for Rashford. If Barca get that Marcus Rashford, it's actually good business. It's actually very, very good business. 30 million euro as well. That's like 25 mil pounds. 30 million euro buy option. That's like 20. To be honest, if even for Premier League clubs that are looking at Rashford, how do you go 20 million for Rashford? If that was the option, I think the issue is obviously is this big wages. I think a lot of clubs wouldn't be able to cover the wages. That's why. And obviously, Rashford seems to only want to go to Barca, so that probably helped. The reality, though, is that if he even does a half decent season, so long as he's not like a bum, and if he at least performs well, gets goals, I think Barca would activate it. 30 million to steal. If he even gets 15 goals in all competitions, Barca might say, okay, yeah, he's a good option to have off the bench to contribute, an attacker can contribute, etc. For 30 million. It's a steal. The only benefit that might happen to Manchester United is that if he actually does perform well for Manchester United, there might be other clubs, because it is an option to buy. It's not a mandatory option. If he does perform, there might be some other, teams that might go, hey, hang on a minute, we can bid more. We can bid more. So let's see what happens there. SMB says this was good business, yes, for Barca. Manchester United essentially getting Rashford off the books is good, and that is true, because him getting off the books for a year, because he is one of our biggest earners. So yeah, from that point of view, I agree. Rashford is 27 with miles of a 31-year-old. That is true. That is true. He's been playing a lot. Does he have his pace anymore or not? I don't know. G, is the Butcher back fit? Do you know? Also, I agree again with you, G. Not sure about playing three at the back. I'm not convinced either yet. I'm still not convinced. I've not seen it, work yet. United traditionally don't play back three. It's just not in our DNA. So this is what this preseason should be for. If Amorim can't get it to work, then I'll just be honest, guys. I want Amorim to succeed. I want him to succeed. But at the end of the day, if you're coming to the Premier League and you can't adapt, we had one of the worst. We had one of the worst finishes and seasons ever in history. If it doesn't work, he will be sacked basically by Christmas. As simple as that. Rashford might be playing. That's a good point. I mean, I don't think he'll be a good 9. but it would be interesting because you know, he definitely has more legs than Lewandowski. Although I think Lewandowski is his ability is overall better number 9. But it would be interesting. It definitely would be interesting to see that happen because Barca aren't going to be going to get a number 9 of a striker. That isn't going to happen. You know, as far as I'm aware, that's not going to happen. So, you know, what's going to happen? I don't know. I don't know. I still think he should probably play on the wing, but then, you know, you got, you know, Yamal and Rafinha, etc. So, you know, we've got to see what happens. But at the end of the day, sorry, 1 second, guys. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. So Rashford, time a success at Manchester United. I mean, it's for me, and I want to keep, and I want to be biased. I think it's been a success, because at the end of the day, he was from our academy. He's been playing since he was what, 18, 19 years old, I think, or maybe his early 20s. Because he started in what? It was Van Gaal's season, wasn't it? Which was back in 2014, 15, I think. You know, so he's been at United, one of the oldest players at the club. He was an academy graduate. So for an academy graduate, I don't know many. Like, just if we just even look at all the top league league teams in the league, right? If you look at Arsenal, Liverpool, United, Chelsea, all the rest of them, can you name me an academy graduate that spent the same amount of time as Marcus Rashford in recent memory that's been as successful as Marcus Rashford? Give me a couple of names. Like, I can't think of any. I mean, okay, you could say Foden. Has obviously been more successful trophy-wise, but he's not played for as long as Rashford has. And already we're seeing some of his deficiencies. Arsenal, I can't think of any. I generally can't think of any academy that's played as long as Rashford has been successful. Liverpool, likewise. I can't think of any. You know, Trent. Okay, Trent. I'll give you Trent. Although he's obviously gone. And he was there for a while, so I'll give you Trent. Kane, but Kane left, and Kane didn't win anything with Spurs. Chelsea, again, I can't think of anybody. You know, so this is what I'm saying. So a lot of people will say, "Oh, Marcus is a flop," etc. But I'm just thinking, but just take it into context. Like, he was fundamentally, he was an academy player, so we didn't pay loads of money for him. He's been at the club since, as in playing first since 2014-15. Reece James, no, but it's the length of time, though. But it's the length of time. It's the length of time. You know, Reece James has been injured a lot. I wouldn't even put Reece James in the same bracket as Rashford because he's been injured a lot. Like for barely played. He wasn't part of Chelsea's Champions League winning squad. He wasn't part of them winning the last Premier League title. Yes, he's basically, for me, the only thing you could say about Reece James was this season. And even then he was injured a lot this season. So I wouldn't put Reece James. Trent, I agree with, and Saka. Well, what have Arsenal won with Saka though? Like, trophy wise, like, what have they won? I can't think of since Saka's been. I don't think Saka was playing when with Aubameyang, etc. I don't think he was. So what has Saka won? So given that, and also Rashford's playing for longer, but still, like, you know, Rij won the. Oh, did he? Oh, did he? Okay, I didn't know that. I thought he wasn't in. Okay, so I'll give him that. I will give Rij. Okay, like I said, just like with Foden, I give Rij and Foden more accomplishments, but the duration of time that they've been compared to Rashford is not the same. And Rij was injured like a lot. So for someone who's basically been playing first team for Manchester United since 2014, 2015, and is just leaving now, that's like a full-on decade playing at the highest level. You know, I don't know. Mega, Rij is younger though. How can he play? What's the thing? We'll see. Like he could potentially be. I'm not doubting that he could potentially be in the future. My issue with Rij though is more the fact that he's been out injured a lot. So even though he was involved with that back foot, this was that I can't remember the time when he's played more than a full season for Chelsea. That would be my only asterisk of Rij. Yes, he's involved. He was involved in the final. Yes, involved, but for a lot of the time, he's been out injured. So that would be my only thing with him. And I'm still, with Rij, there's still an asterisk in my mind of the fact that I don't know with how injury prone he's been. I just have a feeling the next 1 or 2 years, especially. Essentially what I'm saying is by the time Rij gets to Marcus Rashford's age, I think he'd be done. I could be wrong, but given the rate of injuries he picks up and long is out, you're not going to get less injury prone as you get older. You're going to get more injury prone because there's more expected from you. And this is definitely going to be true next season. Chelsea are now back in the Champions League. So they're now going to be playing Champions League football. It's going to be high intensity, none of this Conference League stuff, playing high intensity ball and the Premier League. I expect Chelsea's injury count to go a lot more this season as well. But we'll see. Yeah, Kane was closest and probably the best player, but he won nothing. Exactly. So I would have definitely said Kane, but he didn't win anything. Same thing with Saka, didn't win anything. So I'm not. This is going wrong. Don't worry. I'm not saying that Marcus Rashford is a United legend. Like, don't get confused. I am not saying he's a United legend at all. However, I do think that the slander on him has been a bit too much. Because when you count, and even if I include all those players that we're talking about only 3 or 4 players. So we're still saying top 5. We're saying Trent, we're saying Saka, we're saying Reece James, and we're saying Harry Kane. So we're saying top 5. And 3 of those players haven't won anything. Saka hasn't won anything, Kane hasn't won anything, and so in Foden. And Foden and Reece James, although they've won more than Rashford, you've got one as an injury-prone player, and Foden is still young. We'll see. Is he probably the only one that I would give it just, but he's not started played for as long as Rashford has. But regardless, I think this is ultimately good for both. It's good for both clubs. It's good for both teams. I think that fundamentally. Sorry, what was this? I think that fundamentally the hope, and I think my ideal would be that he has a good season. He has a very, very good season, and we get a bidding war. That would be what I want. Like you say, G, we have to give Rashford some credit for what he has achieved. We wish him well. Yeah, exactly. That's it. Exactly. He's achieved a lot more than the reality is like he's been, since Sir Alex Ferguson, he's been United's best academy player. In terms of what he's achieved and his consistency, he's been the best. I think you could maybe argue that Manu and potentially Garnacho are more talented, although, doesn't know what's happened to Garnacho, to be honest. But the fact of the matter is that we've had a lot of academy players come through and have not been as talented and as consistent as Rashford has. And I would argue that's the case for a lot of players in the Premier League. Because, like I said, we can only name 5 that you could even compare to Rashford, and 2 of them haven't even won any trophies, and the other 2 are quite young. Junior Garber says, "Would you take Ollie for 40 mil or Sesko for 65? I'd take Ollie for 40 mil. I would take Ollie for 40 mil, and I would spend the 25 mil that you have, if we have to get the new goalkeeper. There, that's what I would do. I wouldn't spend. Ollie is at least like, because the way I also think about it as well is that you got to think about adaptation to the Premier League. Like, so Ollie Watkins is not going to need to adapt to the Premier League. Kune is not going to need to adapt to the Premier League. Brian and Bremo, these players don't need to adapt to the Premier League. They already play in the Premier League, so it's fine. Sesko will need to adapt. And then if he doesn't adapt, because in the first season, we'll be like, oh, well, he needs to adapt. But if he doesn't adapt, then we're in trouble. And then you get a Timo Werner situation, who also happens to come from Leipzig. Lingard scored in most of our finals. Yeah, he scored in the FA Cup thingy final as well. Rashford big game record is I mean, he scored a few goals obviously against in the City in derby games and stuff like that as well. Finals, did Rashford score in finals? I'm trying to think. Did he score in that Europa League final against Ajax? I can't remember. I don't think he scored in any of the FA Cup or Carabao Cup finals. But yeah, most of his goals came in, competitions in the league. But I mean, compared to other players, I guess he's one of my most consistent strikers, but we'll see. Not consistent forwards, I guess, but we'll see. Rashford should have been the man that beat Rooney's goal record, but he became too big for his boots. This is as Chris, cheer for his boots, and thought he would always get into the team. He didn't perform. Hope he's done this. And then there is an element to that. I'm not denying that. I think there is an element of like, especially, but I think some of that comes to also the previous management. You know, giving out ridiculous. Like, you've got to understand, like, why is Ed Woodward? Why is the previous management giving out insane contracts? Insane contracts. 250, 300, 350 million, all these insane contracts. That did cause problems with players, getting too much money and too big for roots. I think that's obviously a big thing. So I definitely agree with that. But I think a lot of that comes to the wage structure of Manchester United. And obviously Ineos is coming in and are trying to fix it, So we'll see what happens. Anyway, guys, we are finished. So thanks everyone who was watching and getting involved. Really appreciate it. If you are new to the channel, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter at Red Devil Studio X. We're also on Twitch, on Twitter, and as well. The links are in the description. We are on the road to 5K subscribers, but we're also on the road to 100 followers on Twitch. So please follow on that, and 100 followers on Twitter as well. Have a nice day, guys, and cheers. Peace.